The next two presenters are both heroes of mine, so I feel very honored to get to introduce both of them. I start out Dr. Heird here. AQHA second vice president, Dr. Jim Heird, was an AQHA director for Colorado in 2009 and became a director for Texas in 2011. He has served on the Judges International and Show Committees and on the Show Council and the Animal Welfare Commission. Dr. Heird is an honorary vice president of the Uruguayan and Argentine Quarter Horse Associations. He was also an AQHA judge from 1977 to 2015, and he judged 13 AQHA World Championship shows, multiple international world championships, and 2 National Reining Horse Association fraternities. Dr. Heird was a former extension horse specialist at North Carolina State University, a former professor at Texas Tech University, and has held various dean and director positions at Colorado State University. He is currently the executive professor and coordinator of Equine initiatives at Texas A&M University and holds the Dr. Glenn Blodgett Equine Chair at Texas A&M. He was also on the executive committee of the National Western Stock Show and is the ex officio director of the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. He graduated from the University of Tennessee with a BS and an MS and has a PhD from Texas Tech University. He and his wife, Dr. Eleanor Green, Dean of the College of Veterinary Medicine at Texas A&M, live in College Station, Texas. On a personal note, I got to ad-lib just a little bit here, Patty. But from the time I entered the quarter horse world and started being involved as a judge and a trainer, the name Jim Heird has been associated with education, with leadership, and a great horseman. And I know he's a pretty good judge too, because he put me at the top of the line at the World Show one time in the halter. So. But it is an honor to welcome Dr. Jim Heird.
Steve, I'm sure you realize there's a lot of people in here that weren't first in all the years that I judged, so I hope that's not an indication.
Another thing is everybody makes a mistake.
Exactly. Thank you, Steve. Good morning. Welcome to Texas. I hope all of you have a great convention. We're really excited about taking a little different trend this year and talk about things that are positive in our industry. If you haven't been to San Antonio before, it's an unbelievably historical and beautiful city. Next year, they'll celebrate their 300th anniversary of its founding. 300 years here in Texas. Actually, hadn't been in Texas that long, but it's also America's #1 convention city. And if you don't believe that, go out and try to find a restaurant tonight. You'll find that out. You know, when I agreed to talk on this topic today, I thought, boy, this is going to be really easy. You know, I'm just going to tell you guys as professional horsemen about all the things you're doing well. And even though I don't have any questions about what you're doing well, when I started putting this together, it really wasn't that easy to make it make sense. And so I hope it does. It's maybe a little too early to find that out, but we'll see when I get done. I thought I would start by reading about how to give compliments. I thought, you know, that'd be a good place to start. That was very discouraging because when you read about giving compliments, you can become disillusioned. When you read about how people feel receiving compliments, there's some really unusual concepts. First, some people don't like compliments. That was news to me. Secondly, some people don't know how to receive them, especially men. So we're good. We got more women than men in here. And thirdly, some people think that compliments are simply a way of manipulating people. And finally, not everyone gives compliments from the heart. And therefore, people aren't sure you're telling them the truth. So let me ask you, how many of you have complimented somebody since you've been here? Were you sincere? Kinda. Okay, so see, you know what I'm talking about. Okay, good. Let me assure you that my being here today is to truly compliment you. There are no hidden meanings, and I am sincere in speaking from my heart, and I hope I don't make any of you too uncomfortable by complimenting you. To be honest, before working on this, I didn't realize giving a compliment was actually a problem and so complicated. So let me start with a question. Have you ever thought about human nature, particularly as it relates to negative thinking? Let me share some insight with you. Our nature as humans is to be critical. We eliminate, we carry rumors, and if we see something we don't like, we want to change everything associated with it. One of the hardest things for some of us as humans to do is to try to find a positive in a bad circumstances. It's one of the first lessons we teach in judging class. Now, is Kelly McDowell back? And Charlie, are you back? Because they're former students, so they've heard this before. Add up the good, don't eliminate. I can't tell you how many times I preached that as a judging team coach. When people had trouble placing classes, add up the good, don't eliminate. It's easy to eliminate. You can find an activity, a person, an event, or an organization, and put all of your emphasis on what you don't like. Pretty soon, several things are going to happen to you if that's your line of thinking. You spend so much time on what you don't like, you end up condemning an entire group, an organization, or even in our case, a discipline. Secondly, if you spend too much time on what you don't like, pretty soon there's nothing else to like. Those of us who are judges know that this is the worst thing that can happen to us when we're standing in the middle of the pen. You start judging each horse as they come in, and suddenly you realize you've eliminated every single horse in the pen. There's nothing left to place. And so you have to have a mind change. You have to quit thinking negatively. And when you make that mind change and start thinking about what you like about each horse, finding a winner becomes pretty easy. You can even find Steve when you do it that way. The third thing that happens is we start thinking about what we don't like about an organization and decide we want to change to a new organization. I know none of us have ever done that. Or you just don't want to be involved in the one because there's so many bad things that are happening. We see this in churches. They're called schisms in the South, by the way, when you break off to another church. Horse clubs, schools, community clubs, we see it all the time. We decide we don't like this or that. We don't like a decision that was made, so we decide to leave and join our own new club or organization or school. The reality is that fairly soon these new organizations have the same problems and issues as the old one did. Isn't that amazing how that always happens? We look at everything negatively and we see negative results. I suspect that we've all been guilty in looking at AQHA this way at times. I know I have talked to a lot of members who do that, and they do it especially about some of our classes and events. By the way, speaking about not thinking negatively, I hope all of you get up in the morning and come to our open session. If you want to hear the world's greatest optimist talk to you in the morning, come listen to Wayne Lucas talk. I'll guarantee you he is the most optimistic man that I've ever talked to. I can call him in the morning and I'll be pumped up the rest of the day. He's in an industry where 12% winning is considered great. And he is the most optimistic man that you'll ever see. Every race, he has a winner, every single time. And so you're going to love his talk in the morning. What I want to do today is to get you to think positively about what we're doing well in AQHA and what you as professional horsemen and women are doing well in the show ring. I want you to stop and add up the good in your AQHA life. Let me ask you another question. Have you thought about all the good things that's happened in AQHA and within your Professional Horsemen's Association in the last 5 years? Take a second and think about that. The progress we're making, I think, is pretty extraordinary. First of all, I hope that you've found that AQHA staff and its executive committee are sincerely listening to you better than at some times in the past. This attitude starts at the top. Craig Huffines, our Executive Vice President, is a listener, he's a doer, and he's as positive as anybody you'll ever meet. He's interested in making our organization a servant organization, one that serves its membership. He realizes that if we're going to survive and prosper, we need to make sure that we're offering our membership not only a service, but also that's something of value to your lifestyle. While you're here this week, take the time to introduce yourself to him, listen to some of his ideas for the future good of our organization, and do the same with those of us on the executive committee. We want to know what you want us to do better. I learned a long time ago, in academia you have to do strategic planning all the time. And I learned a long time ago that there's really only 3 questions that you need to be able to answer about an organization or business to get it better. First, what are you doing well that you need to keep doing? Second, what are we doing that isn't working and we need to stop doing? And third, what are we doing that we need to be doing for our future success? If you'll answer those 3 questions about your organization, about your church, about your life, whatever, you'll be amazed at how easy it is to plan for the future. Think about those 3 questions and talk to us this week. Along this same line, as an organization and staff that wants to help you, you've had an unbelievable staff liaison in Patty Carter. You heard all the accolades, sincere compliments this morning. You already know this, but she's dedicated to helping not only you, but also every member in this association. We talk a lot about people with a servant attitude. She has it. Be sure to tell her thank you for all that she's done for the professional horseman. She's dedicated a lot of time in this last 5 years to making your council more proactive and helpful to your clients and to yourself. Now, let me share with you some of the things you're doing well. Let's begin by talking about improvements in animal welfare. Think about that in the last 5 or 6 years. I can remember having to do this at the forum in the afternoon the year after we started the Animal Welfare Commission. And I can tell you that certainly not all of you were on board when the Animal Welfare Commission was formed and came at you with new ideas about protecting our horse and our breed. But the progress our association has made in a few short years is amazing. We are the model of other organizations, and they're using us to measure their progress now. Even though at first there was a little bit of resistance to the new rules, you as professional horsemen and women have helped to make the changes most of us now realize were necessary. Change is never easy, but you and your colleagues have been supportive and have even come up with new and better rules for the welfare of our horses, both in the ring and at our showgrounds. I know that many of you talk regularly to your proteges and not only encourage them to be aware, but some of you just flat said, don't do what you're doing at one of our shows. We don't need that look here. You have realized that what we were asking you to change wasn't to hurt you. It wasn't to stifle you, but was to preserve from negative outside influence our breed, our horse, and your livelihood for generations to come. Another question. Have you watched our horses in the warm-up pens lately? I'm excited about what I see. This change didn't come easy. And it's happened because, first, the association leadership made it an important issue a few years ago. Not everyone agreed with those changes, but as a group, you guys got behind them and now are on board with what we need to be doing to protect our horse and our breed. Secondly, our stewards are doing a good job of helping you follow the rules of our association. But most importantly, it's you, our professional horsemen and women, that have gotten behind this effort and attempted to fix it yourself. In general, I think we can take almost anyone into a warm-up pen at almost any time and not be afraid of what they will see as far as horses or equipment are concerned. And when was the last time you saw a horse that was too thin at one of our shows? Think about where we've come. We are beginning to look at our horses, our warm-up pens, and our show rings with a mindset that asks, what will this look like to the outside world that is not habituated to what we do and see every day? I know I appreciate, and I know other people on our executive committee appreciate the efforts and the progress that we're making in this particular area. Are we home free yet? Probably not, but progress is noticeable, and we need to recognize it and be positive. I appreciate that some of you have learned that not all the new people that come to a horse show are there to spy on us. Some are there because they're actually interested in getting more involved in our industry. They are potential new owners. Some of you are making a sincere effort to make those people feel at home at our events. Here's the most interesting fact that I've heard in the last 5 years. You know that in a recent survey, 30% of the population of the U.S. not involved in horses today want to get more involved. 30% of our American population not involved today want to get more involved. I know that many of you are trying to make people you don't recognize that are visitors to our events comfortable when you see them, because they are potential customers. And what they see, we've got to encourage them to want to be a part of us. Did you watch the Western Pleasure classes at the World Show this year? Talking about a positive change. We had a majority of our horses moving forward, parallel to the rail with a pleasant, alert look. Sure, there are plenty of people out there that are going to talk about that they're still unnatural in their movement, but to be honest, there's a lot of people in our association don't realize how hard it is to get a horse to move straight down the rail with reach and impulsion and do it slowly without resistance. Are we where we need to be to create large classes again? Probably not. And for that matter, our horses may never move as forward as some in our industry would like. But you, the professional horsemen and women, have changed how you're presenting the horses, and it is being noticed. I personally hope that this trend continues and our weekend shows begin to benefit from it. But the important thing is that you guys are leading this change. You know, last fall I had an interesting discussion about Western Pleasure gaits and comparing them to a highly trained dressage horse. For those of you that don't think that Western Pleasure is going right, I want you to think about this a little bit. After thinking about it, I didn't disagree with the comments people made. Certainly, as highly trained as a dressage horse is, its canter is not a natural movement. It is a cadenced, collected gait with impulsion and straightness. Dressage riders, too, are looking for a natural athlete that works willingly and quietly and accepts training. I think all of us need to be more aware of how difficult it is to train a great Western Pleasure horse and start thinking about the level of training that is required for greatness in this particular class. Of course, we need to continue to be critical of those horses that are intimidated, too slow, lack cadence in their movement, those horses that are too low in front and lack alacrity. But you as professional horsemen have helped to eliminate many of those kinds of horses. And at the same time, you've led the effort to present horses that are a complement to our breed and our breed history. Another discipline, one that's very close to my heart, where I think we've made tremendous progress, is our halter horses. Some will tell you that our halter horses are still too heavy muscled, stand on hooves that are too small, and don't move athletically enough. I'm here to tell you that our halter horses are greatly improved in the last few years. We have horses that are balanced, structurally correct, and athletic. Certainly it's not every horse in every class, but I've stood in the halter ring when a high percentage of our horses were over at the knees, overdone, and then ill-mannered, including our winners. That's not true today. Most of our top horses are balanced, structurally correct, and well-mannered, and they are being shown quietly and without lip chains. Again, not everyone was enthusiastic about the lip chain rule, but as professionals, you did two things. First, you developed a better device that was more humane that we use today. And secondly, you're training our horses to be better mannered and calmer, traits for which our breed should always be known. Are some of our halter horses still overdone, too straight in their hocks, and not as athletic as a performance horse? Of course. But the improvement is palatable. And if you are going to retrain our way of thinking to a more positive way of thinking, we need to see the improvements that we're making. As professional horsemen, you're the ones who've found more structurally correct horses, trained them to be more useful in our breed, And I personally believe that it will lead to this discipline being more appreciated and less criticized in the future. The same can be said about our other classes. Horses in many classes are less intimidated, moving more forward, and are more functional. Speaking of natural movement, can you believe the growth in our ranch horse classes? Do we need more proof that there is a demand out there for a horse that moves forward, is athletic and pleasant in its work? You're the people working every day with these horses, and you're the ones that are making the difference. Thank you. Now let me talk about your contributions to the industry. Have you thought about all the things that you are doing as an organization, professional horsemen, for our industry? Your initiative, Ride the Pattern, gets more popular at every show. People trust that what you are telling them is right, and they appreciate your willingness to share your knowledge. And in the last 2 years, the Crisis Fund has raised $8,500 through your initiative. Speaking of your Crisis Fund, your annual online auction has raised $31,000 in the last 2 years. In fact, you've raised $91,000 total in the last 2 years for that fund. That's amazing numbers. And the thing that makes it interesting to me is I know that most of you will never use the Crisis Fund, but you understand the fragility of what you do for a living. And if you were not able to work each day, you know how quick a financial emergency can occur. I'm impressed with your enthusiasm for this project each year, but I'm more impressed with your willingness to be helpful to your colleagues who are in need. By the way, the same is true of your Ask a Pro initiative. How many hours do you folks spend? I see you mostly in Amarillo. That's such a pleasant place in the fall when the wind's blowing across that warm-up pen. And so I see you sitting there in the dust and other elements, helping someone else exhibit their horses better. And that doesn't include all of the hours that you donate to youth associations, 4-H clubs, local riding clubs, and your own AQHA affiliate. I know that each of us here today was helped or encouraged by someone who knew more than we did at an impressionable age. You are now the role models for a new generation. What you tell young people about our profession, and more importantly, what you demonstrate by your actions, is critical to encouraging new generations of leaders for the American Quarter Horse. You need to also be proud of your leadership as members, committee members, task force members, and contributors. We're making progress in so many ways, and your participation in your association is helping us make that progress. I know and appreciate how many committees, subcommittees, and task forces you serve on. You listen, you support your discipline with common sense most of the time, and a diplomatic explanation of why you do what you do. You haven't asked that things stay the same. You haven't defended what is undefendable, and you've seen the bigger picture of where we need to go as an association to not only survive to another generation, but to grow and increase our participation. Also, and we don't thank you enough for this, you need to be commended on your efforts as judges and stewards. We need honest, knowledgeable judges who have show ring experience. Judging is a difficult enough task at any time, but it's easier if you know the classes and the class procedures of those classes you're judging. I know that judging takes time away from your customers, your barn, and most importantly, your families. But our association needs judges who want to protect our breed and make wise and conscientious decisions. Who is better prepared than you as a professional horsewoman or horseman? Thank you also to those of you who are stewards. Stewards do an important job for our association, both now and for the future. They are the ambassadors of the association at a show. They are also there to protect our horse and our breed. As a professional, you know what is expected as far as humane treatment is concerned, and you have instant credibility with your peers. By serving as a steward, you can help us carry our breed into the future, protected against those who are always watching what we're doing with our horses. As I close, and get closer to closing at least, let me say that I, along with others who actually think our progress is improving, are grateful for your leadership. Are we where we need to be in every class? Probably not, and truth be told, we may never get there. There is no perfect horse, and no matter how good a trainer you are, some of our horses will just not become perfect. Will we ever have every halter horse in the class that's capable of winning without anything we don't like? Probably not. Will we ever have all of our pleasure horses that move the way we all want them to move? Probably not. That's why we judge, and we try to get the best ones to the top. We need more people in our organization, and you can help with this, that understand that excellence is hard to achieve. Winning is hard. Not all the horses we exhibit are world champions, but some of the ones that are placing down today in our classes are better than those that won just a few years ago. Talking about human nature, it amazes me how different as a sport we are from the rest of the sport world. For example, if Alabama plays the University of Charleston in football, no one ever says how poor or overmatched Charleston is. They talk about how good Alabama is. When Michael Jordan played, no one talked about how average or inferior the other players were compared to him. They talked about how great Michael Jordan was. We have some Michael Jordans in the show ring today, but we don't talk about them. We look at the poor performers and talk about how bad the class is when we should be talking about how good the top end of our classes are, and we all need to do that. So here's a question that I don't have an answer for. Why do so many people, when they're watching our horse shows, only look at the bad ones and not the good ones? I don't know the answer to that. What I do know is that our breed has made progress in a lot of areas, and I do know that you, our professional horsemen, have been essential to that progress. This doesn't mean that we can quit working or trying to achieve excellence in everything that we do or fixing the things we don't like, but I know that you're being appreciated for what you're trying to get done. So in closing, let me say thank you so much for all that you're doing to make our horses better, and our association, the American Quarter Horse Association, the greatest breed association in the world. You're doing some great things for our horses and for your association. Thank you so very much for all that you're doing. I hope you have a great convention.
Thank you, Dr. Heird. It's safe to say that the leadership at AQHA is in a very safe place. Our next speaker, Al Dunning, is an AQHA professional horseman and the current chairman of the AQHA Judges Committee. He and the 25-member group is charged with setting guidelines for judges and approving new judges. In his career, he has collected more than 45 world and reserve world championships between the clients he trains and his own appearances in the arena. He was also named AQHA Professional Horseman of the Year in 1996 and has been an AQHA judge for 27 years. Al believes in leadership and mentorship among his fellow judges and AQHA professional horsemen. He is committed to the American Quarter Horse and finds excitement in educating others and leading by example. Again, Patty, I got to talk just a little bit. Guys, Al Dunning, you look up, well, not, it used to be you looked up in the dictionary. If you Google professional horseman, there should be a picture of Al Dunning. I can't think of anybody who I would aspire to be more like than Al Dunning. And he has a wife named Becky too, so. But Al, is he here? Oh, here he is. Get on up here. Hey, Al, I got one more thing to say. It wasn't a plus half, it was a plus 1.5. And he'll know what the meaning of that is, and I hope he don't bring it up.
Oh, thank you. Oh, my goodness. Well, yeah. You know, I appreciate getting the chance to speak, and I'm humbled by this opportunity because there's so many people that offer so many wonderful things in our industry, and I'm not full of baloney like some people we know. And so I'm not going to tell you the truth. There's some really turkeys too, but in general, there's a really amazing group of horsemen that are involved in our industry out here. So I want to be real positive about what I'm going to say. That's one of the things I keep thinking about is staying positive. And, I want to talk to you a little bit about requirements of success, because the title of my speech, or whatever you want to call it today, is more than just winning. And I mean, when I was a kid, it was all about getting that wooden trophy. You remember those, Joe? I mean, I had one time that was about that big, and I don't even know what happened to it now. Termites probably ate it or something. But, I was so proud to have that, and that made such a big deal, winning. But then as you grow a little older and get a little wiser as you go, you find out that just winning isn't what it's really all about. It's about a whole bunch of other stuff that I would like to talk about. To be somewhat of a success, I think the first thing you have to have is a good horse if you're going to be in this business. But the good horse, I mean, we've seen good horses overcome a lot of really bad training. I mean, some bad horsemen, but we've seen some great horses that, made somebody in the business or whatever, rather than the opposite. But I think what you lack, and Jim, I think, is just an exemplary of that type of thing, is that, business sense. I think business sense is a big deal, because, if you don't understand the business part of this deal, that this is a business, that it's not just about riding horses, I don't think you'll be very successful, and you definitely won't make any money, and then pretty soon you'll be out like the rest of the old cowboys, some of the guys that I looked up to that didn't make it because they had no business sense. Personality would be another part. So good horses, you have to have some knowledge. You got to have some business involved, but I think you got to have some kind of personality. I think you got to work on that, as you got to try to be somebody for somebody else. I think you got to be a servant. I think you got to be pleasant. I think you got to be somewhat fun to be around. I think you got to be a lot of things, because a lot of people in this that come and show horses don't have a chance to win. They don't have a chance to win. So what are they looking for? They're looking for a good time, okay? And they're looking for a good experience. And they want to have fun. They want you to enjoy you and enjoy the horse and be around you. So I think the personality part, some people don't have that. If you don't have that as a professional today, I think you probably ought to go get a job at the Circle K or something, because you got to have that little extra something today. You got to be good with horses, and you got to be great with people. I think that's a key to this too. There's a lot more to it than just those things. Good horses, business sense, personality. I think there's a lot more to it. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my personal experience. I had advice from a lot of good horsemen along the way, but I had really good advice from a great businessman that I met early in my career. And he said, Al, you ride good. You ride good. You seem like you're coming along, but I'm going to give you some real good advice. He said, don't be like those other trainers. How do you like that? Because I wanted to be like those others. Drink, chew, stay out at night, get in a fight, chase the girls. I wanted to have all that, and I couldn't understand what he meant by that, see? But since I was going to marry his daughter, he had a little to say about it. So, but I know, he said, it's really, you need to make this more about family, business, and work ethic. Those are the things he wanted to indwell into me. Without his advice, I could have gone the other way pretty easy, like a lot of the guys that I know that went away. I'm like, you know, I thought I was like you. I thought I was a kid. I still feel like a kid, but you know, now I guess I'm one of the older guys, and I don't know if I like that or not. You know, so I saw you down in the gym this morning, and I saw you down in the gym this morning, and I was there, you know, trying to keep up with you guys, but it gets harder as it goes. But you know, I know this for a fact because I had this kid working for me that wanted to rodeo. And I told him, I said, now you be careful with that because there's only a few at the top that make it financially and make it family-wise and make it. I mean, what we call make it is a success. But there's a whole bunch of others that scrape. Well, that kid, he said, I got to do it, Al. Well, he quit. He got bucked off, landed on his head, couldn't quite ride him. I hooked him up with Dennis Reiners, one of the great bronc riders of all time, and Dennis helped him. And anyway, that kid called me back looking for a job in about a little bit, you know. It's about 30 days, 60 days later, something like that, because he had made the wrong decision. He had made the wrong choice. Choices are a big part of everything you're going to do in your life, right? Make it those choices. And making those certain choices, like who you hang out with, who you marry, what you do, what your priorities are, things like that, will probably define you along the way. You know, to be at the top, you don't have to know everything. That's another thing that George, Becky's father, told me. To be at the top, you don't have to know everything, but you have to surround yourself with people that do. You know, I'm going to tell you about something that just happened that kind of got me a little bit. So there's a real good trainer, and he's at a horse show recently, and I'm witness to this, and he has an assistant that's just whomping the heck out of this horse, and he's doing really looking ugly, you know. I can tell you guys are professional horsemen. This guy's like jerking and spurring, and he's just nasty, you know. And anyway, so he got a card and blah, 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 you know, from Stewart. But who did it reflect on? It reflected on that guy that thinks he's good, the horse trainer, that his assistant would do something like that. As far as I'm concerned, he's just as guilty. Okay, you got that? It's like the kid that brings the gun to school. Where's the parent? You know, and that's, I think, another thing as a professional, we got to be that. We got to remember those people around us, what they're doing too, because they reflect on us. You know, and that brings out another thing that maybe I was going to talk about later, but I'll say it right now. But your customers reflect on you as a professional too. If your customer is abusive or rude to the horse show staff or something like that, I think that it's your responsibility to speak up to them. And if you're too chicken to do it, you're not going to last very long in this daggum business because one bad apple spoils the batch. You understand? I had a lady riding with me a while back, and she was just sorry as heck. I mean, had a lot of money. Pretty much had the best horse I had. But she was spoiling the batch. You know, she was souring the whole thing. I got rid of her, and I got one better now. How's that? That doesn't do that, that listens and pays attention. You're afraid of losing something. If you're afraid of losing something because of financial stuff, you're gonna mess up in this business. I promise you that. If you're afraid of gaining something, if you want to gain something that isn't quite right, that isn't quite legal, isn't quite ethical, you're going to lose something in this business. This is tricky. This is a tricky business. You got to stay a straight line. You got to stay on a good path. And if you miss out that, you're going to go down the wrong path. You're going to make the wrong choice, and you'll be done. I mean, I can think of 100 guys that started during my career. I've been training right now as a AQHA professional for 47 years. Okay, it's a long time. That's a long time. And in 47 years, I can think of 100 guys, Jim, you can too, and that have gone by the wayside because of ethics, gone by the wayside because of, you know, their morals, gone by the wayside because of all kinds of things other than horse training, choices. So George told me, he said, Al, he said, create and foster relationships with people for long term around you like a business advisor. Not a horse show guy, or not a horse trainer or something, a business advisor. Don't hang out with the guys at the bar and drink around and act like an idiot. Go be smarter than them. Step up, be above that, Learn from the older guy. Don't hang around a bunch of young guys that just don't know what they're doing. It's just like a little gang, But go learn something from somebody that knows, that has some wisdom, Wise takes a long time to get. I'm just wondering when it's ever going to show up, But wise takes a long time to get. So he said business advisor, doctor, lawyer, banker, insurance man, dentist, all that kind of stuff, all those kind of guys I need to find in my life as a young man and grow up with them and keep them as my surrounding deal so I can stay healthy and wise in my business and invest properly and do that kind of stuff. Not just, make a buck and spend it on that next horse that it's like heroin, you get that, you always think that next one's going to be the one or the champion away. But you got to do all the right stuff to make the infrastructure grow, and make it a real business. So George was a big impact, and then along the way I hired a lady, and I've had some wonderful secretaries and business people work with me. But I hired a lady named Barbara Dietz, and Barbara Dietz talked to me about branding. And branding was a big part of it. Barbara ran the Sun Circuit for several years, for you guys that might remember. So we came up with my brand, and it's about as dumb as you get. I mean, I'm AD, Al Dunning, and I have ADD, so it was perfect, AD. So I built my AD brand, and I put it around everything. That's my logo, okay? It's on everything. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys have ever seen it, but it's if you know me or have paid any attention, you've probably seen that AD brand. I brand everything with that. I pull everything together with it. I keep as a thing in my head is what sets me apart is bringing it all together. I try to keep that because you have to be a little you got to think of yourself a little bit besides thinking of all the other. But, my mom said if you weren't proud of yourself, nobody else was going to be. But proud and being, ridiculously haughty or, arrogant is two different things, okay? Proud means that you don't mind getting down in the dirt, doesn't mind calling your friend when he's sick, don't mind, going to visit someone with cancer or somebody else, that stepping outside the box, It's what you are in here as a person that'll define you along the way, not only as a horseman, but as a good human. Branding is a big part of it, and having a mission statement, having an idea of what you want to do. I mean, I think a lot of horse trainers just go along. They go along. They're just begging for that next good horse, but they don't have a plan. I think you got to have a plan. I think you got to plan it all the time. I got hurt one time. I got hurt a lot of times. I talked to J.D. Yates, you guys know that, but he's having knee surgery again on Monday, and he had knee surgery just not too long ago. He's had like 7 of them overall, and, I've had my shoulder done not too long ago. I had this one done. I had 2 discs removed from my back. I've had 3 knee surgeries along the way. I've had all that stuff. And you know what? I did something. You're supposed to do something in life. You're not supposed to just be okay. You're not supposed to live forever. We don't live forever. Take a chance, do something with yourself, and make a difference. That's what this is all about. I don't want to go with all my parts working well because I didn't do enough, right? Jeez. But so when I got hurt, I knew one thing: I had to get diversified. Because when I was hurt, now I've lost my income from training horses. Now I had to do something. And that's about the time that Pat Close came around and I wrote that first reining book with Western Horseman. And now it's sold over 500,000 copies and stuff, and that's pretty cool. And since then I've wrote 4 other books, so I have 5 total. And this is a guy that my whole thing was horse. And then But when you get knocked down and you're hurt bad, and you think, you know what? And I'll tell you, I found out who my friends were right about then too. All those guys, that little groupie I talked about earlier, a young bunch of guys, they all went away. Now that I wasn't worth anything because I was all bummed up, hurt, maybe wasn't going to make it back, they didn't give a dang gum about me. You know, they weren't really my friends. You know, that's such a key. You got to really pay attention to your life a little bit. But the few that stuck around, the few that cared, the few that called me, the few that said, you know, what can we do for you? And they were sincere about it. They didn't just say it like rhetoric. Hey, come by the ranch sometime. You know, please don't. You know, you know, you get that. But I felt these guys were sincere, and they're still my friends today. And those other guys, I finally opened my eyes to what was going on. But I also knew that I needed to build my business for more than riding horses. So I started doing videos. I did clinics. I started a tack business called AD Tack. I wonder where that got that name from. Huh? Got that one. But those kind of things have really helped my business along the way and made me more of a businessman than just a horse trainer too. You know, someone said sometime, they said, if you're going to really do this, there's a couple of, I've heard so many things, and I read a lot. I like to read. My wife reads way more than I do, but I like to read too. But they said, if you're going to really make money, you got to make money while you sleep. That means that, you know, my online business, my tack business, I have an online training business that I do, that kind of stuff makes me something while I sleep. That's amazing. The other thing they said somebody outside, you got to learn to be good enough that somebody outside your little group knows who you are, knows your name. So I've been involved in the city of the Chamber of Commerce there, and then some other, this program called First Pitch, where they come and pick up the kids and take them when they, you know, they can't have any, they don't have good parenting and stuff like that, and they take care of them, teach them things, and it's just wonderful. So you got to get outside. You got to use what you have, your talents and stuff, not to just stay in that little box with that little group, but get outside the box and do something with your life more than what you're doing right now. Well, and if you don't have ADD, I'll teach you how to have it, okay? Because you got to get going with it. And, you know, there's a guy sitting back, Pete Kyle sitting back there in the room. Pete was one of the many that worked for me along the way, and he remembers all that stuff. And someday I'll tell you guys some of the stories about Pete. But at this level where he's at today, I better leave him right now. So, but Pete has followed some of the stuff, and I'm so proud of him because he followed some of the stuff with his tack business, with his family, with going outside the box and not just riding horses and expecting, you know, life to come to him, but he made a life. I like that. You know, being on the board of directors of the Arizona Quarter Horse Association was a big deal for me. I went on the board of directors. I'd just been a professional for 1 year, and I started the Arizona Quarter Horse Youth Association back in before most of you guys were born, but about 1967, I think I started the Arizona Quarter Horse Association Youth. And I had a great group of people some of them are still in the business, that we all were kids then and we got it going. But then it wasn't long after that, and the guy that put me on there was a guy named Bill McDowell. Then not after that, Martin Clark put me on as a director of AQHA and wanted me to come on a committee and that kind of stuff. And doing that was another part of getting out. Being here is another part of doing more with your life than just standing in your arena riding your horse and being like this, you know. But you guys are trying to be like this. You're trying to say, come on, I want to know more. I want to fill my life up. I want to have as much as I possibly can and do as much with God's gifts that he gave me, you know. I want to do something with those. And we should. You know, presentation is always important. Presentation's always important. I'm going to tell you this. I went to a horse show just not too long ago, and I go watch them warming up their horses. And I saw a couple of professionals with no hat on and a t-shirt on riding their horses around at the horse show. And I hate to tell you this, but that arena you're in with the peers around you should be like your office. I'll never forget this kid that walked into my office one day. He had flip-flops on and shorts and a t-shirt and no hat. And he said, Mr. Dunning, he's very polite. He says, I'm here and I'm thinking I'd like to be a horse trainer. I wondered if you needed somebody to work for me. I said, I'm tell you one thing, son. I don't want to even know your name. But if you want to come back here someday and apply for a job, you better have a cowboy hat on, you better have a long sleeve shirt on, you better have a set of Wranglers, have your boots on, and look like you can work. Because right now, you gotta look like you gotta go work at the surf shop or something like that. Get out. He left. I never saw him again. He probably got a job at the Circle K. There was a sign out there not too long ago, so he probably snapped that up. But the difference was, and I'll use Pete for an example. I hate to embarrass you, Pete, but I saw Pete as a young kid. He's working for Tommy Mannion. He was polite, said yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. He presented himself right. He was outgoing, all that kind of stuff. I'll never forget that day. And I met him, and I told Becky, I said, I'm going to hire that guy. And I went over to him right there. It was at the Arizona Sun Circuit way back when. And I told him, I said, hey, if you ever think about coming out west, you call me. And he did. But that's the difference. If he would have had a daggum hat on backwards and a t-shirt on, looking like a slob or not like a professional or didn't act polite, didn't act respectful, he wouldn't be where he is today. You got that? So if you're mentoring any young guys, or if you go in that show arena and you see somebody, come on, it's like your office. Look like a pro. Would some rich person that is affluent, that's worked their butts off to make their money and want to spend it in the horse industry, they going to want to spend it with that guy or that guy? That's how I look at it. Okay? Be a pro. That's what pros are about. Okay? The other thing's a clown, as far as I'm concerned. I hate to tell you, if you're that way, you're a clown. You've lost your respect. Okay? You should respect our industry. You should respect the AQHA. Dressing properly, acting right, treating people good, welcoming people is about respect. Okay? That presentation's a big deal to me. You don't have to have the fanciest equipment, but you got to have it clean. If it's not clean, I figure you're not doing your job. You're lazy. Lazy doesn't work in this business. Lazy does not work in this business. After this, some of you guys you probably just quit, right? Because there's too many things that make it involved. I mean, if you're a struggling trainer, you got to whip up because you're doing something wrong. Because there's plenty of horses, there's plenty of people out there right now. It's how you act, it's how you are, it's what you do, it's what you say, all those kind of things that make the difference. I hang up all the bridles in my tack room. I hang them up facing front, one rein this way, and this rein this way. Hang them up. So when you take them off, they hang up properly. Okay? I make everybody that works for me pick up every day. Rocks, paper, anything laying around. It makes a difference. My rigs are washed and cleaned before we go to the horse show every time, and washed again when they get home. Sometimes they're washed twice before we go. This trailer has shavings in it. We have all our matching halters. We have matching blankets at the shows. Doesn't cost too much to do that. Plus, if you're smart, you'll get the customers to pay. You say you want to be part of the team or don't you? You're part of the team. You're either in or you're out. If they can't afford it, well, that's one thing. But most of them that have horses can afford a halter and a blanket and that kind of stuff, so I have them buy it. It's just part of it. Taking care of your tack, raking your aisleway, doing the things special. I can go right down the aisle at the horse show, at the Sun Circuit or whatever, the big shows like that. I can tell you who is working hard enough, that's doing the right thing, that's the right kind of manager and stuff like that, just how their outfit is. And just because it's fancy doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have to be fancy. It's got to be cared for. It looks like there's got to be some time put into it. The next thing is the care for horses. You know, I was disappointed at the Sun Circuit about one thing. Bob Cale's my dear friend, and when I was done with the cutting, I got in the golf cart with Bob and drove around, and he was the steward there. And we went and drove around the reining pen, and I saw him jerking and spurring and doing some stuff at the horse shows that they shouldn't do. At home, I mean, if you're hiding and you need to kick one's butt, I mean, I don't know, is there anybody that hasn't had to kind of get after a horse for being misbehaving? They're a big animal, and we're little people, you know, with little brains. So, you know, but you're supposed to have them trained when you get to the horse show. You're not supposed to be retraining them. And it made them look bad. It hurt my feelings to see those horses hurt like that at the horse shows and treated like that. Hurt my feelings that those guys were professional members of the professional horsemen. Okay? And they're not here. They're not here. They don't care. It hurt my feelings. Hurt my feelings for the horse. Hurt my feelings for the AQHA. But both the guys that I saw got a card. Okay? They got a card, so at least let's hope it made them think. Let's hope they get better. Let's hope they care more. But I doubt they will. There's certain people that should be in this thing. There's a whole bunch of people that ought to be out, you know. And if you're an owner and you're here, because this is an owner's thing too, and you put up with that stuff, you're guilty. You're bad. You ought to get out of the daggum industry too, if you allow somebody to treat your horse poorly. We feed our horses the same time, every day, every time. And I think that's really important. Somebody told me about that. It's good for the horse. It's good for the thought process. It's good for them to assimilate. We exercise every horse 6 days a week, 1 day off. Don Dodd taught me that back when. We blanket our horses at 60 degrees, 60 degrees. Our lights are set, depending on the daylight time. They only come on once and go off once a day. You know, originally when I first heard about lights, they had to come on in the morning and go off in the evening and come out and come back on once a day. And they work and they shed. Things like that make a difference to me. You know, you ought to try to be, I'm not the most on-time person in the world, but you should try to be on time. You ought to try to, if you're committed to do something, that's just part of being a professional, is try to be on time. Say what you're going to, the thing is, if you say something, if I say, I'm going to be there for you, and I don't show up, what does that do to our relationship? Okay? What does that do to our relationship? If I continually late, if I don't say I'm going to do it, how can you trust me anymore? How can you trust me in the other parts? Okay? Well, that leads to a whole nother subject I'm going to stay away from today. But everything you do has to do with who you are, and what you are in here, and how you are to the public. Everything you do, your family, your relationships, your faith, everything has to do with that. I want to stop and talk about, because I know I'm going to give you some food for thought. So I'm going to talk about sponsorships. You know, I was one of the first out there that stuck my neck out and started asking companies if they wanted to sponsor me. Now I've got all these logos. I look like, you know, a race car driver, you know, sometimes, you know. So, and here's how I did it. This is for you guys to try to do this, because it's pretty simple. And some of you guys are good enough that you should be doing this, because it pays. Okay? It pays. Good. So here's how I did it. So first of all, it was simple, because Becky said to me, honey, we're broke, and so you got to help me, and just riding horses isn't going to cut it. So it was easy. We weren't maybe all the way broke, but we had too many toasted cheese sandwiches, let's put it that way. So I decided I'd do this. So here's what I did. I made a brochure and I put show pictures in it. So I picked my best pictures of winning, showing, things like that. And I started with a cover page saying, you know, basically why I wanted to be sponsored and what I wanted it to be a partnership between us. You got that? This is easy. This is a good formula. Everybody can do it. The next thing I did, I put my biography in there, the stuff I did, who I was as a person, and about my family and where I came from, and so they knew some history about me. And the next page is about some accolades, you know, that I won, you know, a couple things. So I had that in there. Then my next page, and then I'd slip a picture in or something like that in between them so that they had, and then my next page is what I could do for them. What I could do for them. Because it's interesting, most people that want to be sponsored aren't worth sponsoring because they don't do anything for the sponsor. You got that? They don't do anything for the sponsor. And the sponsor needs you to do something, so they give you something, you give something back, so there's some kind of equality here. You understand? It's simple. So I said, here's what I do. I'll help you with your advertising, because if you think I'm good enough to represent your product, we're going to be a partner in this. So I'm going to send you win pictures that say your product did this. They fed my horse better. They, you know, made it look better. The tack worked better. Whatever it is, I'm going to send those pictures to depict that it does work. Next thing is periodically I'm going to send you a testimony, not only mine but testimonies of others. The next thing I'm going to do any product testing you might have. So if you have something you want to try, I'm going to give you an honest evaluation of that product. And I thought of everything I could possibly do. I'm going to put up banners in my arena when I do videos. I'm going to put it on my stalls. I'm going to wear it on my shirt. I'm going to do all this stuff for you guys. And in return, this is what I want for you. And I set up a little program of for this much this product, you get this much. For this many dollars, you do this. For this many dollars, you do that. Made it real simple, real easy, and you gotta start somewhere. You got it? And then since I started getting, and then what I did, I go to them humbly and say, hi, I'm Al Dunning. Here's my business card. Here's my brochure. I love your product. Maybe we can do something to benefit each other. You know, that's what it's about. Okay, so, but those kind of things make it pretty easy. Make it pretty easy. And get the first one and they say yes, it's easier to get the second one. You understand? And when you finally get somebody like Wrangler, like I got, and like Professional's Choice, like I got, and you got Justin Boots, like I got, and pretty soon they go, if they like him, we gotta like him too. So, you know, it gets easier as it goes. We got to take that first step. Make sense? Pretty simple. So hopefully maybe that's all you'll get out of this speech, but at least you got something, right? You know, one of the things I think that's real positive in our business is how you relate to your client. So as a professional horseman, I think the first thing I want to do, if somebody comes to me, I'm going to say, so you've been riding with John, right? And they say, yes. I said, what happened? What happened? And they say, well, you're this and that. And if they tell you too many nasty things about John, don't take them. You understand? Because they'll say the same nasty things about you in not too long because they're that kind of person. Their horse isn't worth it. Training. You understand? I hope you understand. I'm not telling you from experience because I know for a fact horse relationships with good customers, usually a pretty good one lasts 3 years. Really good one lasts 5 maybe. I've had some 20 some odd year customers because they were vetted. Okay, they were vetted along the way. They were good people. They were nice people. They love horses. They like me. I like them. And we've had a good partnership because it's a partnership along the way. But I sit down and I talk to them, and if as soon as I'm done, I don't tell them I'm going to take their horse, I call that trainer. I call that other trainer up and I say, hey, this guy just came and told me he's taking his horses from you. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, you should give that other trainer as a professional an opportunity to clear it up. No matter how bad you want that client, you owe it as a professional to let that other guy get a shot at fixing it. Okay, and if they don't get along, if it's something happened along the way, you don't know what it is, and you decide to take them, then it's okay. But if you take them without talking to the other professional, you're no good. You're no good. Okay. I got all kinds of things like this. I can go on, but let's see what time it is. Okay, I'm doing pretty good so far. I'm doing okay so far. Sitting down and talking to the person before you take their horse in training and tell them what you expect of them, and listening to them of what they expect of you is paramount. You can't, if somebody expects, I had a lady not too long ago came and I do cutting now, and she said, I want to cut every day on fresh cattle. And I said, there's the door. I was really nice, but basically that doesn't happen around I don't have that many cows. And plus, she's doing her own program, not doing my program. I know what works, what wins. She thinks practice, ruining your horse, doing the same thing over and over wrong, expecting a different result works, and it doesn't work. Okay? You understand? So I sent her on to another trainer. So listening to both sides is important, and then telling them what you can do and what you can't do, and being honest. One thing I think, and the guys that work for me know for a fact, I've always left somebody at home to take care of the horses when we're gone. And a lot of trainers don't do that. They don't do that. They go to the horse show for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and nobody's there except maybe a guy that feeds the horse. The horses just sit. That's wrong. There's got to be somebody there to take care of the horses, ride them around, turn them out, exercise them, lunge them, do something with them, or you're cheating the public. That is a great saying, cheating the public. You can't cheat the public in this business and last. You can't do it. Charge a little more. If you're afraid to charge in this business, you might as well quit right now. You got to make money. It's not all about making money, but you got to make a living, right? You got to make a living enough to pay Susie to work for you, right, Susie? Yeah. You got to pay enough money for that. You have to pay enough money to hire good help. You got to pay enough money to have a decent rig. You got to have enough money to do those kind of things. Don't be afraid to do that. We're supposed to make money. You're a businessman. If you're a businessman, what does a businessman do? He gives you a service, and in return you pay him. Got it? That's what we do. We give them a service, and in return they pay us. On time. Okay? On time. I bill in advance. If they don't pay on time, they're out. Okay, you got it? They got to be able to afford to do this. This isn't cheap. There's a gap between you as my customer and me as the trainer. I can't be your friend 1,000%. I am a professional. You should listen to me when it comes to the horses. If your expertise is dentistry, I'm going to listen to you when it comes to my choppers, okay? But I got to do my thing. You got to do your thing, okay? And there's got to be a gap there. If you get too close, sometimes it muddles the deal. You got to keep that. There's got to be sometimes with really good people, it's a real small gap. But with most of the customers, you're better off leaving a gap out there and not just make them part of your family, okay? I promise you. I've done this long enough to know a fact that you'll keep people longer if you keep them a little bit at arm's length. That doesn't mean you don't hug and kiss them if they're sweet and they're nice and all that kind of stuff. But if they get too close, sometimes they lose that little respect for you, There's so many people I respect so much in my life. There's so many people I respect so much. And I love my family. They're the ones I want really close. Don't let those other people get in between you and your family and the things that are really important in life. You don't want to lose that part. There's a lot of temporary gratifications in this life that can seep into your life and make you screw up, make your choices wrong. You can't let those seep in. If you do, you're done. You'll be done. Your integrity goes down the tubes. Your character is forsaken. the stuff that you preach to somebody, how are they going to believe you now? Because you allow that stuff to seep in. Ethics are the number one thing in this business. Oh, I missed one. How about contracts? I've never had a contract with anything. If you put your horse in training, I make you sign a dadgum contract, and it says you got to keep your horse here for a year, and I don't like you, how can I kick her out? She's got a contract. I don't want her to go. She don't want to go. If I don't have a contract and you want to go, I want you to go. And if I want you to go, you're going to go. You got it? I wouldn't do that to you, though. You know that. But, I mean, that's the case. I have a feeling. I just did that thing for AQHA in one of the articles about contracts. I don't do any contracts. I do a hold harmless agreement, period. And I'd verbalize everything else to the person, okay? But I don't have any contracts. They pay or they go. They're good. We all get along. They got a decent horse. They listen. I listen. We're all like partners in it. They stay. That's how simple it should be. Go back to the ethics part. And I already have said it, so you guys know it. If you ever lose it, if you ever lose your integrity, you ever lose your ethics, there's a lot of memories out there. You probably will never get it back. I had somebody just the other day say to me, well, not him. I remember when blah, 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 blah happened. I said, when did it happen? He said, well, I don't know, 35 years ago. I said, and you haven't forgiven him yet? He said, well, I guess not. I sure have. I don't know if I've forgiven him, but I sure haven't forgotten it. 35 years ago. Be careful what you do out there. Memories are amazing in this business. My wife, Becky, is always on me. It's a good thing because I'm a mess, So, and she says, always do the next right thing. Always do the next right thing. So if you think of that with your horses, you always do the next right thing, your clients and your family. Always do the next right thing. Always be willing. Always be willing. Always be caring. Try to do what's right, not what's wrong. Don't make mistakes. I think that helps. The other thing she told me is play the tape all the way through. Play the tape all the way through. Oh gosh, I'm going to get this customer and it's going to be so great. And they have so much money and I'm going to be on the road all the time with these great horses and I'm going to be a champion and I'm going to have a buckle and I'm going to have a trophy and, it's not that good, okay, when you leave your family. It's not that good when you leave your ranch. It's not that good when you have problems because of all that. It's not that good when you have to be so close you're less servant to that person right there. It's not that good when you take 10 horses in training and then they finally leave and you have 10 empty stalls, okay? I'd rather have one good customer with one good horse, 10 of those, than I would one customer with 10 horses every day of the week. Got it? It's not, someone told me this, I like this. It's not the teeth of the dog that'll get you, it's the tail. It's meaning when you get into something with somebody, an agreement, a relationship, or whatever like that, it's not usually the beginning of it, it's the end of it. And if you'll think things all the way through, what could happen, what the best scenario or what the worst scenario could be, it'll save you a lot of heartache. Now I want to talk about another one for us. This is another word of wisdom from me. I don't know if it's wise or not. It's something I do. It's about sales and commissions. And that's a big part of our business, So not only do I have when someone comes in training, I hand them a packet. And it talks about me, first of all, and because I want them to know who I am, who they're dealing with, that kind of stuff. Then it talks about I put the hold harmless agreement in there. I have a fact sheet, tells you their horse, their insurance, the horse's name, what associations they're involved with, what cards they have, I have all that. That comes, and they fill that out and hand it back to me. A rate sheet. It tells them what I charge on cattle, what I charge off cattle, what I charge to do the other things I do, how much it is to haul, how much it is to day fee at the shows, how the fees are split, my other expenses are split between the customers, It talks about commissions. It talks about all that stuff. So that there's nothing hidden. There's no surprises. If I'm a businessman, I want no surprises. If I'm gonna be a businessman, I can't surprise anybody. I gotta tell them like it's gonna be. So, you know, when I've sold horses, I've been in all kinds of good and bad deals. But here's the deal. I still just charge 10%. Horses are more expensive. People say, well, we charged 10% in 1970. Why aren't you charging 15? Well, in 1970, I sold $500 horses. Now I sell 100,000. I was involved in a sale of a great horse for $5 million. My commission was a pretty good chunk at 10%. And I shared it, so I made 5% of $5 million, you know, almost got us out of debt for a while, you know, until we bought more horses or whatever, you know. So, you know how it goes. So, but 10% is my fee. If you buy the horse, if you're my favorite customer right now because you're right here, but if you come to me and say you want to buy a horse, you're going to pay me 10%. If I go buy it from Joe, and Joe says, well, I got this horse and it's priced at $10,000, and they'll pay one commission, and I need something, I usually have to give him 5 of it. You know, that's just common. I don't say to you, I mean, I could draw the hard line. I could say, well, listen, Joe owes me and wants 5, so you're going to owe me another kicker because I don't make my full 10%. I've never done that. I need it. I know you do, Joe. I'm giving it to you, okay? So that, I think that's important that you think, because here's the deal. Right now, if I hand you $1,000, not you, Joe, I wouldn't give it to you. If I hand this nice lady $1,000, it's a big deal, right? It seems like a big deal. A couple days from now, it's nothing. It's nothing. It's gone already. You spent it. It's went to pay the bills or whatever like that, $1,000. I've seen people cheat, lie, steal, everything for $500. Ruin their lives, ruin their career, ruin their integrity, ruin their, for $1,000 or a couple $1,000 is ridiculous. Ridiculous. Be fair. Don't ever do this one. I had this done to me back when. I shut it down. We do not do this. Joe wants $10,000 for his horse, and this guy comes in and he says, I got a customer, but I'm going to price it at $20,000. And so this guy's making $10,000. This guy probably could have ruined the sale. First of all, if you let it happen, Joe, you're just as guilty as the guy doing it, my book. Okay? You can't do that. If that guy can buy your horse for $10,000 and sell it to his customer, then that's the way to go. If he doesn't want to do anything, and the other thing that pisses me off is if a guy, again, if you call me up and you say, I heard you're looking for a horse, you should call Joe. And I call Joe and I buy the horse, and then later you call me and say, where's my commission? I said, well, what'd you do? You said, well, I told you where the horse is. You deserve 5% or 10% for a phone call? Are you ridiculous? You don't do that. You do it because you care about it. You like to, maybe something will come back to you along the way. You got that? You don't ask for every little bit. You don't, it's nickel and diamond. Are you kidding me? Don't let it happen. Don't let it happen. Don't let anybody add on. Don't cheat. 10%, 5%, or nothing. I know a lot of people are just happy to get the horse in training, which is dumb, but they do it. But what you should do, you deserve, as a professional, you deserve a commission if you put your reputation, your knowledge on the line to buy somebody's horse. You deserve something. You do. You shouldn't get anything. But it all ought to be set up first. And I believe in the rules of agency. Full disclosure. If I am going to buy you a horse, I'm going to tell you exactly what I make and what that other guy makes too if he makes something too. But the customer needs to know everything, and they're going to appreciate it. No, but I mean, that puts a bad mark on our professionals as business. It puts a bad mark on us. All of us. Then all of a sudden, horse trainers are all bad. Have you ever heard somebody say that? Absolutely, I have. Horse trainers are cheaters. Horse trainers are liars. The horse trainers are horse traders. You know, none of them are any good. I've heard it say. It's so far from the truth because we have such a wonderful base of people. But we as the leaders of this industry can't let the bad stuff happen. We can't let the bad stuff happen. How are we doing? Not bad. Okay, I'm doing okay. I'm going to visit on down to, you know, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard is those guys here. I've got this group of young guys over here, like I was once, and they say, you know, that customer here, she's ridiculous. And the guy goes, yeah, boy, she's nuts, and she's, you know, she does this, and they talk about them. And that lady pays she feeds you. She gives you, don't ever talk bad about your customer. Don't ever talk bad about her horse or anybody's horse. Don't gossip. Gossiping's bad. Gossiping's bad. Don't gossip. Go to work. Rake your daggum aisle away. Clean your tack. Do something, but don't sit around and gossip. That's the worst thing. That goes on and on. All it does is perpetuate bad things in your life. Don't let it happen. Okay? And definitely don't be so ridiculously ridiculous by talking bad about somebody that has a horse in training with you, that's feeding you and taking care of you, that probably likes you. No matter if she's a little goofy, okay? No matter. You don't say that. You just love them or get rid of them. Don't mess up and do that. It looks bad for you. It looks bad for all of us. Negativity begets negativity. Good behavior is contagious. You got that? So what do you take away from this today? You know, clients want a factor of enjoyment. They want fun. They want fulfillment. They want the journey. It can't be about winning. They all can't win. It's got to be about caring. It's got to be about loving their horse. It's got to be about relationships. It's got to be about, you know, a lot more than just winning. Camaraderie. One big happy family. So, you know what's interesting? Several years ago, I started doing a thing where I write down my goals. Each year, I write down my goals. And so I've got a paper, and I have it in my briefcase, and I take it out and look at it every so often. But the first of the year, I write down my goals, what I want to do, who I want to impact, what I want to be better as a man, how I want to be better as a grandfather, wife, husband, wife. That too. So she makes me clean the house and do all kinds of stuff. It's just horrible. But you know, I think writing those goals down helps me. Because if you don't think about goals, I think you have a problem with that. I think you have a real problem with where you're going to go. How are you going to go if you don't have a direction? You know, where are you going to go? I don't understand that. You know, if you don't know your directions, you're going to get lost. You understand? So you got to write down your goals. I think that's part of it. You know, I joined this church group called Promise Keepers one time, and from them there was another group called something else. But anyway, the first thing they made us do, they said, everybody sit down. I want you to write your eulogy. Ooh, what are they going to say about you when you're gone? That's tough, you know. I want you to think about that a little bit. I want you to think about that when you write your goals. Where are you going to go? What are they going to say about you when you're gone? Did you ever impact anybody? You know, just winning a trophy or something like that's not what this life's about. You know, did you leave a legacy? Did you teach anybody? You know, teachers should be the highest paid people in our business, not athletes. You know, prioritize your life. Organize your skills. Organize your day. Think about what you do. Well, think of what you can do extra each day. Think about being nice to somebody. Think about impacting somebody's life. Okay? That's such a key to good life. Doesn't it make you feel good when you make somebody else happy? Doesn't it make you feel good as a trainer when your client wins? Doesn't it make you feel good when you do something for free that you usually charge for? every now and then. Not always. Every now and then. You can't give it all away, you know. You know, what goes up must come down. You might think you're a big dog in the business today, but you can be at the bottom here tomorrow pretty daggum quick, and we've seen them, haven't we, Joe? Since we've been around. They go up, they come down a lot faster than they go up. So Becky gave me a book to read back when. It was called Butterflies Are Free. I need about just a few more minutes, and I'll be done, if that's okay. Okay. And it's about this caterpillar that's living his great life, and he's eating the leaves, and everything's great, okay? And he has other little caterpillars around, everything's going good. Well, he sees these other caterpillars, and they're climbing this hill. And they're all in a row, and they're really busy to go there. You understand? And they keep saying, come on with us, come on with us. You should go there. Hey, this is where it's all at. This is the deal. And he's just having a great time. He's having food. He's just enjoying his life. And one day he just succumbs to that call. And he gets in line. And he fights his way through there. And finally he gets to the hill, and he starts climbing the hill. And he sees a caterpillar hanging off the side saying, help me. And he says, I'd like to, but I can't because I'm going to the top. I'm going to the top. He crawls over the neck. Then he sees another one, and it's Heird alongside. And he has to crawl over the top of that caterpillar and step on his head to get to the next level. Finally, he gets to the top, starts to get to the top, and he sees a caterpillar coming down, and the caterpillar says, hey, don't go. There's nothing up there. And he says, no, come on. This is where we're going, baby. This is where we're going. We're going to the top. And he goes, and he just pushes that one aside, and he gets to the top, and there's nothing there. And that's what happens in this business if you're not careful. You push your way to the top, you lose your integrity, you lose your family, you lose a lot of things that you can never reclaim. You can never reclaim. And if you do that, you've made very, very poor choices that may never come back again. You only get to go around once. Try to make those right choices as they go. That caterpillar had to go back down that hill and crawl by the ones he didn't help. Crawl by the ones he didn't stop for. He didn't spend the time with. He didn't do the right thing because he was so busy on that journey that led him to nowhere. I think that's important. One more thing. Staying relevant in this business is tough. I'm an old guy now, just had another birthday, and I've been trying to be relevant to you guys. I've been trying to be relevant to the AQHA and to the NCHA and the NRHA. I've tried to be relevant all along and trying to stay current. I keep working at it, and it's not easy. I'm trying to stay there. But staying relevant is tough. If you're not relevant right now, get there. There's plenty of places for everybody. We're all part of this. Whether you're the guy that sweeps up or whether you're the guy that makes the mess. There's places for everybody in this business. Okay, whether you're a professional or whether you're an owner, whatever. But get relevant. Do more. Do more than you're doing right now. I read some stuff, and Becky reads way more than I do. She's a real reader, okay? But I read some stuff. And I read Zig Ziglar. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Zig Ziglar, okay? But Zig Ziglar is an impact guy, and he'll speak. And one of the things I read the other day, he gave kind of like several things for us to think about. One is to have a dream. Have a dream. If you don't have a dream, I don't know what I wake up for. I wake up every morning. I get to go to the barn. I get to ride these horses. I get to, see those people. I get to, get in the dirt. I get to drive a tractor. I get to, man, that's my dream. I'm living it. It's so cool. Think like a champion. What do champions think about? What did Michael Jordan think about in his top of his career to make him as great as he was? Probably more people use that name, Michael Jordan, than any other name I know of. You could use other names, Obama. No, I'm just kidding. No, but you think about, they use his name, and they they say, you know, how great he was. But what was he thinking about when he was so great? You know? Think like a champion. Be committed. You know, I'm either the kind of guy that I'm all the way in, both feet, or I'm all the way out. If you have 1 foot in it, Krista, you know, if you got 1 foot in it, you're riding the fence, right? Don't ride the fence. If somebody asks you your opinion, tell them. If you're wrong, you're wrong. So admit it. But work. Commit to what you're doing. Love what you're doing. You know? That's the only way you stay relevant. Another thing he said was, do it right now. Do it right now. You know, that idea, well, I should call that guy on the phone because I know he's got cancer. I don't know. I'm a little squeamish about that, so I'll just wait for a while and then you don't do it. You know, I'm going to show that horse when he's ready. If you wait till he's ready, he's probably too old to show. You know, I mean, we see that kind of stuff. You know, I'm going to go see that person that made an impact in my life and tell him I love him. But I wait, and it's too late. Be prepared. You know, that's part of it. That's part of that deal where the guys are kicking those horses' butts in the practice pen at the horse show. They didn't do their homework. They're not prepared. They're not good horse trainers. They ought to not have a professional card, period. Because they didn't do their homework. The practice pen is to warm up in, period. It's not to train your horse in. Training's for home. Hours of sweat, toil, work it takes, commitment it takes at home to do right by the horse, spend the right amount of time with them, and bring them to the horse show when they're prepared. Okay? And you be prepared too. The show is not the place to train. Keep your word. Word is your bond. You don't keep your word. You kid, you lie, you sorry son of a gun. You have given it up. You got to keep your word in our business. And you got to give, when you handshake somebody and you mean it, you look them in the eye and you keep your word, you do what you're supposed to do. Don't ever let that go away. Again, don't use it right, you lose it. Set your goals, and we talked about that, the goal setting. Evaluate where you are today. Evaluate where you are. You know what? Transparency is a good thing. Every once in a while, just go look in front of the mirror and just look at yourself and go, who am I? What have I been doing? What am I doing now? What am I doing next? You know, look at yourself. Think inside yourself. Think about what you've really been thinking. Don't let stuff seep in. That chink in the armor. That's when that stuff will get into your heart, into your life, that'll mess you up. Don't let it happen. But to be able to do that, you got to do self-evaluation all the time. It's part of it. Have integrity. That's another thing Zig said. Have integrity. Wow. You know, I don't know. Does anybody here not have integrity? Raise your hand. Okay. You're lying right now, too. Some of you are lying. Because I know there's somebody in here, because there's too many people in this world that don't have it. Okay? If you don't have it, go out of here with it from now on. Integrity is so important. You know, what does integrity mean? The stuff that's in you, how you present it. Integrity means that you don't do the things that are wrong in our business. Okay? You don't do the thing. You treat the horse right, the person right, the client right. You share, you love, you care. Those kind of things. All that is part of integrity. And Zig Ziglar, that thing. The last thing Zig said is don't quit. Drive forward, don't quit. It's easy to quit because you got hurt. You know, it's easy to quit because you had a bump in the road. It's easy to quit because you're kind of scraping. It's easy to slow down and feel sorry for yourself or whatever like that. But don't quit. You ever heard that saying, quitters never win? And winners never quit. Okay? Don't quit. My dad was 66 years old, 65 years old when he retired, and he died shortly thereafter. Okay? You know, I've seen a lot of young trainers that have struggled along, and because they didn't learn enough, because they didn't have reach out enough to others, because they thought too much of themselves, because of this or that, they've quit. They could have been good. They just need to change. They need to change. They need to be better. Okay? Self-evaluate. Set your goals. Do those kind of things. I think your life will be better. You'll be happy. You'll be a success. Last thing I want to say is God bless God. God bless the American Quarter Horse Association. God bless America. And I'm not just kidding either. If you don't like America, if you're going to be one of those stupid protesters who go out there and protest all the time and do nothing about it, you can leave. So, thank you. I finally got an applause. I like that. Okay? So now's the time for me to quit. Okay? So thanks for having me up here. I look forward to seeing you all around.